Hey everybody, welcome to Dirty Basement Terrain, episode 5. In this episode, we're going to be making water tiles. Now, is there anything special about these? Honestly, no, not really. But what if your players come up to the water tile and is like, why is there water here? Or well, or whatever you want to have. But then you can pop out monsters who are coming up through the water. Hey, it's a oldie but a goodie. I said the watcher in the well, or whatever you want to call it. But I am going to be showing you how I go from this to this. Now, in this episode, I won't be showing you how I got to the hexagon point. That is in a previous episode, which there will be a link to in the description down here somewhere. But I want to walk you through the process of building these tiles. Now, do I think you should do it exactly how I did it? No. I'm just going to show you how I do it using colors that are my go-to, my preferred way of doing it. But if you make yours, and you want to use your own colors and stuff, use your stuff. Take what I make and make it your own.
Okay, if you remember, we saved those offcuts from when we were trimming down the second layer of these tiles. And it's going to be a simple process. We need to make a lip or a little ridge for the water. So what we're doing now is we're going to be gluing down the little offcuts because they're already cut to the proper angle, which is why you save offcuts until you're done your project. You can see it fits. The angle is perfect, and we're just using some PVA, or I'm here using wood glue, and we're going to continue to glue around until we get the whole ridge. Don't worry about if it sticks out a little too far. That's perfectly fine. We will take care of that in a bit, but first we want to get the entire lip done, which is the focus of what we're doing right here. Okay, now obviously this last piece isn't just going to sit in place like the others, so we are going to have to trim it down. I'm going to mark it with my Sharpie here, and then I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and gently cut it as close as I can to what it needs to be, and then dry fit it into place. And since it fits, I'm going to glue it in. Now that we got it glued in, I'm going to adjust it so it's flat against the second layer. Press down on everyone, just double checking everything's fit right. And now I'm going to take my Sharpie and take care of those pieces that are sticking out just by gently cutting them off. You definitely want a sharp blade on this, so if you have an old blade in your X-Acto, switch it out for a new blade, because you want clean cuts with this. And as you can see, there you go. It's all done. At least as far as putting the lip in. Now we have two. And now we're going to do a quick foil ball texturing. Of course, now we got to start inserting the oh so wonderful tentacles that we had prepared previously. Again, we're just punching holes in, and we're going to use some wood glue and fill up the hole. And insert the tentacle. Again, you can put as many as you want or as few as you want. I am putting in 6 tentacles total for this because I just think a lot of tentacles should come out of water. Now that the wood glue is dry on the tentacles, we're going on to the standard black Mod Podge. Again, this strengthens the foam and is most definitely a suggested step. Now I have to primer the tentacles themselves because Mod Podge doesn't work on plastic too well. For this I'm using Vallejo surface primer through my airbrush. I just want to make sure to get the complete coverage, and not that it's necessary any leftover primer in my airbrush I'm going to place onto the rest of the tile. Now I lost the original footage for these tiles for this step, so I'm including footage from previous video, but the process is exactly the same. I'm giving them a zenithal highlight with some white ink through my airbrush at a high angle, just to include natural shadows and highlights with ease. Here I'm just getting some black craft paint, and I want to black out the parts from the zenithal highlighting that hit the foam itself. It's not necessary, but I just want to start off with a dark black base. here I'm just base coating with my preferred color of Apple Barrel's dark blue gray. Now, if you've noticed, you can see little streaks of colors. Well, that was because I forgot about this step and went ahead and put the color streaks in that I like to put in. And that's the thing, you can make mistakes. Mistakes are easy to fix. I'm just painting over it. So, if you ever make a mistake, you can paint over it. It's not a problem. And now I'm adding my Stracer color that I like to add with the Deco Art True Ochre, the Apple Barrel Kelly Green, and the Deco Art Rookwood Red. I like to add these Stracer colors because, as always, stone isn't just gray. So, but being with these two tiles, you want to try and keep where you place your colors relatively close to where each tile is. These are the same tile, so keep the reds in the same spots, the greens in the same spots, and the tans in the same spot if possible. Or not. Of course, now I'm doing my mid-tone gray, which is Apple Barrel's Pewter Gray. I'm just doing an overbrush with about 80 to 85% coverage. In all honesty, if you don't want to do this step in the middle where the water is going to go, you don't have to. It can actually save you a little bit of time if you skip that step. Of course, now I'm doing my highlighting, or the third gray, using Apple Barrel's Granite Gray. Just want to do a light dry brush with an old beat up makeup brush, trying to get the edges and the ridges and the upper areas. You mainly want to focus on the outer edges and the top of the lip, and maybe a little bit inside of the lip, but you don't have to concentrate on the inside where the water's going to be going, because that's going to be completely covered up anyhow in the end. And of course, now I'm going with my standard dark brown homemade wash. I'm just going to give the thing an entire coverage of wash. Again, don't hit the middle if you want to save a little bit of time, but I'm just going to hit the middle because I don't feel like going to the effort of trying to be precise. I'm just trying to smash it on and get it done. Now with the tentacle tile, you want to be careful about not hitting any of the wash on the tentacles, because you are going to be painting them, and that's just something you'd have to fix later. Now if you hit the bottoms of it, that's no big deal, but again, just take a little bit of care when you're doing the tentacle one, that way you won't have to fix a mistake later. Now that the wash is dry, we're going to be hitting another light dry brush with the Apple Barrel's Granite Gray just to bring up the highlights and make it look pretty. Don't want to go for complete coverage. Just want to concentrate on the edges and the top of the ridge. Definitely not going to be dry brushing the inside where the water goes on this step. Okay, now I'm actually grabbing black wash. I wasn't completely confident with how translucent the water was going to be, so I wanted to make sure that the water area itself was going to be dark and give some depth, so I decided to throw in some black wash to darken the middle of the tile. Okay, now that the black wash is dry, we're going to paint the tentacles themselves. I'm using Citadel's Contrast Work Flesh because I figured, well, these are living in the water. I need a darker, grungier green, so Work Flesh it was. Of course, with these tentacles, they have a bunch of like thorns and horns, so I didn't want to just leave them green the same as the skin of the tentacles, so I'm going with a darker color, Apple Barrel's Pavement, which is a really dark gray, like a slate gray almost. And I just want to hit each one of the horns or thorns, whatever you want to call them, on each tentacle, just to give a little difference. Okay, now we're going for the fun part, the water. Going to be using some Vallejo texture water. I'm going to pour some into a little mixing cup, just so I don't make a mess. And I'm going to be using some acrylic inks. I'm using green, yellow, and burnt umber. I just want to go for like a nasty looking dark green. Of course, with the amount of water I'm pouring, it's gonna take a while to mix this up, but you do want to make you have a thorough mixture in, unless you want like color waves and whatnot in there. But I just don't feel like it, so I'm gonna mix for a while. Did I mention I have to mix for a while? And a while. And hey, I'm gonna mix for a little while longer. I just want to make sure I have it thoroughly mixed. As you can see, I'm done. And now the easy part, I literally just pour it in. That's what I like about this water texture. It flows so easy, and I need that for getting around the bottoms of the tentacles, which I could not have done with my go-to 5-minute epoxy. The one disadvantage with this material is it takes 24 to 48 hours to dry. A minimum of 24, but more likely 48 hours to cure and be hard. But it's easy to spread out. There's no mixing. There's no odor to this. It's a great product to use. Okay, and now it's fully cured. I did a little test spot so I could check it every once in a while to see if it's cured, because you don't want to touch the product and leave fingerprints in your terrain. Now I'm going to be using a product from Woodland Scenas called Water Effects, which is basically like a heavy gloss gel, but will be able to give me like ripples. And these tentacles are come flying out of the water. The water is not going to be still. I need to add like water dripping off that, and I'm mixing in some green ink and some brown ink to this stuff and brushing it on. I said, I want ripples, I want water splashing, I want water dripping off the tentacles, because these things, I'm going for an exploding out of the water effect almost. So I definitely don't want just flat water, because that's not going to happen if tentacles are coming out. I said, this stuff does have that whitish tint to it, but it will dry and cure clear, minus, the ink that was put into it. Though, unfortunately, like the Vallejo water effects, it will take a long time to dry and cure. Approximately 24 to 48 hours, the same as the still water. But it takes a long time. But when it does cure, it is absolutely worth the wait. Okay, now that the effects are all done and cured, I want to put some Mod Podge gloss onto the rest of the tentacles, because let's face it, these tentacles just came out of water. They're not going to be dry. So we definitely want to give them a glossy, wet look to them. Decided I wanted to add some moss to the edges or the outside of this, because there's water. It's going to be damp and moist, so it's the perfect area for some moss to grow. Now, while placing moss, you want to try and match up how you place the moss on both tiles, because in fact they are supposed to be the same tile. So you want to try and minimize the differences between the tiles themselves. Do you have to be exact? No, but get as close as you can, because again, these are the same tile. And of course, everything's all nice and dry now, and I am happy with how they look. And of course, all of the moss and the water effects are dry on this. And I'm relatively happy with it, so I'm calling it done. Of course, here's the water tile on some dungeon tiles. Players come up and bam! Tentacles popping out and grabbing after them.
Hey everybody, if you made it this far, it means you watched it all the way to the end, and as always, I do appreciate that. If you liked the video, click like. If you want to see more, click subscribe. And if you have any extra ideas or anything you want to say, I do have a Discord, and there's a link to that in the About tabs of the page. As always, when you're making terrain, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.